The research station's outer rim shimmered under the orange glow of the distant star. Orbital winds rattled external panels as automated drones zipped along the hull, monitoring atmospheric exchanges. Inside, the laboratory buzzed with tension. Biologists, xenopsychologists, and security personnel had gathered around a series of reinforced enclosures, where small predator cubs with orange and black fur squirmed curiously. And in the middle of the room, human children. The human cubs had been part of an experimental observational program designed to test interspecies empathy, adaptability, and survival instincts. The idea was simple, at least in theory: place human children in predator nests under controlled conditions and observe how they interacted with the alien creatures. Security and scientists were anxious. Ethical concerns, risk assessments, and contingency protocols were triple-checked. Lieutenant Mara Chen, the human liaison officer, strode into the lab with her usual calm authority, carrying a data pad. She glanced at the rows of cubs, both human and alien. "They're nervous," she said softly. "But humans adapt. That's why they're here." A junior xenopsychologist whispered, "Lieutenant, are you sure this is safe? The predators, they could." Mara cut her off with a gentle smile. "Predators respond to intent, tone, and energy. These children are human. They have resilience, curiosity, and empathy. Watch and learn." The first nest was opened. The predator cubs had been conditioned to tolerate observation but remained instinctively wary. One orange and black cub blinked its 4 eyes at the approaching human child, tail flicking nervously. The child, a small girl with brown hair, stepped forward cautiously, mimicking the crouch she had seen Mara use in previous training exercises. The predator cub growled softly. The sharp teeth were visible, but it didn't lunge. Instead, the girl tilted her head, raised her hand in a gesture learned from Mara, and spoke softly. The cub's ears twitched, then relaxed. Slowly, the girl reached out, letting the cub sniff her fingers. The predator's growl subsided into a curious purr. "Observation 1, Mara whispered to the team. "Humans don't just survive, they negotiate. Look at that." Within minutes, the small girl and cub were circling one another, testing boundaries, learning cues. The human's instincts, adaptability, empathy, and curiosity, matched the predator's intelligence. The cub relaxed entirely, rubbing against her legs. Mara nodded to the scientists. "They're choosing trust, not because they have to, but because they can." The second nest was more challenging. A trio of predator cubs, playful but aggressive, eyed the human boy with suspicion. He stepped cautiously, crouching to make himself smaller, less threatening. The cubs swiped at him, tails flicking, claws out. But the boy didn't panic. He laughed softly, a low chuckle that resonated through the room, and reached for one cub's paw. The predators froze, intrigued. The boy's laughter was not fear. It was joy, curiosity, and authority without coercion. He spun gently, mirroring the movements Mara had taught him, dodging and weaving. The cubs, captivated, began to mimic his movements. Within 10 minutes, the boy was running alongside them, laughing, dodging playful swipes, and testing the limits of mutual respect. Mara whispered to the observing cadets, "Humans don't just survive chaos, they transform it. Adaptability is our weapon, empathy our shield." The cubs, initially wary, began to respond actively, nudging the human boy with their heads, chirping and purring. The predators were not adopting humans in the literal sense. They were responding to intent, to confidence, to choice. The children's ability to adapt, to engage, and hours passed, and the cubs and children interacted with increasing sophistication. One human child picked up a small predator cub and held it to her chest. The predator initially tensed, but the child hummed, a melody she had heard from Mara. The cub relaxed, snuggling against the human. Another predator cub, seeing this, crept closer to mimic the behavior, and soon a chain of adoption-like interactions formed. Scientists scribbled notes frantically. Data pads glowed with analysis. Heart rates, stress markers, cortisol levels, behavioral indicators. The results were unprecedented. Predator cubs, whose instincts should have demanded dominance, aggression, or fear, were now responding to the humans with choice, curiosity, and affection. One young cadet muttered, "It's impossible. They're letting the humans guide them." Mara crouched next to the cadet, whispering, "It's not impossible. It's human nature. Observation, empathy, choice. We earn trust. We inspire loyalty. Even in species governed by instinct, that bond can exist." To inspire trust was rewriting instinctual behavior. By evening, the nests were calm. The cubs had followed the children's movements, played along their games, and even learned cues from their laughter and gestures. Mara observed silently, marveling at the adaptive brilliance of human children. "They're learning social dynamics," she said. "But more than that, they're rewriting expectations. The predators aren't dominating, they're being guided. And the humans aren't leading by force, they're leading by choice." A researcher spoke up, voice trembling with excitement. "Lieutenant, this could redefine interspecies training protocols. The cubs, predators, are demonstrating behaviors thought impossible in controlled observation." Mara nodded. "Exactly. Humans don't just survive alien environments. We inspire them to grow. We teach trust and choice through example, not coercion." Night fell on the station, and the labs dimmed to soft ambient lighting. The predator cubs had curled around their human companions, tails flicking lazily, bodies warm and relaxed. Mara moved quietly through the lab, observing. The cubs chirped softly, nudging the children who returned the gestures with gentle laughter and pats. It was a tableau of mutual respect and trust, one that no scientist could have engineered through rules or programming. It was instinctive, responsive, and voluntary. Scar, the exoskeletal security officer, finally spoke from the observation gallery. "Human, your assertion that trust can override instinct, it is accurate. The predators respond not to command, but to the human's intent. They have adopted willingly." "Yes," Mara said softly, watching a small cub curl against a human child's chest. "And the humans are extraordinary because they inspire that choice. Empathy, observation, humor, calm authority. It's not brute strength. It's not instinct. It's humanity." The cadets, observing silently, scribbled notes and whispered among themselves. "This is unreal. They're not training, they're teaching." Mara smiled. "Exactly. That's the lesson. Leadership through trust, survival through adaptability, inspiration through example. Humans are more than survivalists. We are catalysts for cooperation, even in species that should never cooperate." The following day, the station held a debriefing. Researchers, cadets, and security officers gathered to record data, verify observations, and discuss ethics. Mara stood at the center, the human children beside her and the predator cubs at their feet, tails flicking, eyes bright. "The experiment," Mara said, voice steady and confident, "was not about domination or obedience. It was about choice. The cubs were never forced. They were never coerced. They adopted their human companions because they chose to, and the children were capable of inspiring that choice because they are human. Adaptable, empathetic, courageous." A young researcher asked tentatively, "Lieutenant, do you believe this could apply beyond cubs? Could adult predators, or even other species respond similarly?" Mara nodded. "Yes, it's not about size, strength, or instinct alone. It's about presence, consistency, and intent. If you can inspire trust, even beings driven by aggression or caution will choose to cooperate. Humans excel at that. That's why we survive, thrive, and inspire loyalty across species." The cadets, observing quietly, began to understand. One whispered, "Humans, they're not just survivors. They're extraordinary." Mara smiled. "Yes, extraordinary because we choose to act with empathy. Extraordinary because we understand the power of trust. And extraordinary because, sometimes, we can inspire predators to adopt us as companions. Not through fear, not through force, but through choice." The cubs chirped in agreement, nudging the children, curling around them for warmth, and purring softly. Mara crouched and stroked one cub's fur. "You see? Trust is earned. Loyalty is granted. And in this galaxy, sometimes, that's the greatest strength any species can have. Scarra's voice resonated softly from the observation deck. Human, the galaxy may underestimate your species, but clearly, your methods yield results even the most unpredictable instincts cannot resist. Yes, Mara said, standing tall. We humans are extraordinary not because we dominate, but because we inspire. Not because we enforce, but because we earn. And sometimes, that means adopting, guiding, and nurturing bonds that others thought impossible. The cubs chirped again, tails flicking, as the human children laughed softly, patting and stroking their adopted companions. The lab, once tense and uncertain, now hummed with harmony and understanding. A small but powerful proof of humanity's adaptability and extraordinary nature.